All right, I found a few charts that might be of interest to trade on Monday. But having said that, I kind of view Monday as a reset, if you will. We had the half day on Thursday, the day off on Friday, and then a weekend. And so new stocks will emerge. Earnings season coming up soon, too. But new stocks will emerge as far as news from the weekend and high volume on Monday. And that'll give us a whole new set, I guess, a whole new subset of stocks to watch starting next week. All right, but until then, here's a few charts that might give us trades on Monday morning. PPL, 3 days down in a row. It's not on this chart, but it's basically at the 50-day. And I haven't drawn a trend line here, but you can kind of see it. It's really 3 days down pretty quickly into the trend line as well. So PPL goes on bounce watch or long watch, if you will, for Monday. DRL had this crazy move on Wednesday, then gapped up on Thursday and sold off all day. So as a day trader, you got to watch this one on Monday and see if it gives any kind of setup. I don't have any kind of trigger price or anything like that. Here's a real cheap one, but every once in a while this thing makes crazy moves. XGTI all the way up to 5 back here. Then you had the gap up and it went to almost 3 back here on over 15 million shares. Then a couple weeks ago, almost 15 million shares again, and it went up to 3, and it's selling off ever since. Finally got a pop on, I guess that was Wednesday, and then very narrow range on Thursday on the half day. So I like XGTI as a potential long if you go to 15-minute candles here. Really up over Thursday's high, 214. Might get it back up through 220 and then give us a nice percentage gain above that as they might pile in. I think it's, for all intents and purposes, I think it's done going down, and we could get a nice move in this one. It certainly is worth having it on the watch list. WWE, this one's pretty obscure. And by obscure, I mean you don't look at the chart and say, oh, that's ready to break out or anything like that. You had this nasty gap down. But in another way, you could say it might be ready to break out because after the gap down, it hit almost 12 that day of the gap down. And then a few weeks ago, it hit 12.29. It's really been going sideways ever since. Let's go to 60-minute candles. And that last push up that it had through 12 to 12.29 is really kind of getting close to that again. And if you can get through that, you're up into the gap. And so this is interesting on 60-minute candles because the most recent high with the 12.29 exception is 12.05. So if this gets up to 12.06 this week, it could be Monday, may never happen, or it could be any day this week. This one might push up through 12.29 and then push up into that gap and give a decent trade. You can argue that it's got pretty good support below this area. Okay, I mean, yeah, the lowest it's gotten is 1140, and even more tightly up over around 1170. So this could be a pretty good risk reward up over 1205 one of these days. That's WWE. FE is in my notes, and that's just 3 days in a row down. Sometimes when you get a gap up like FD, like FD had here on this day on big volume, sometimes they just go into a range. And this little bottoming tail here, this might have just been a peak below that range, and it could be ready to head back up. So again, I'll only take this if I get the proper intraday setup. But FE, I think, is worth watching for a bounce, being at the bottom end of that range after 3 big days down. And some of these energy stocks are due for a bounce anyway, so that could also lift FE. And then BID had a very nice move here from 40 to about 45 here in 3 days. Now you've got a couple days lower, and you can see a nice, very narrow range on Thursday. Remember, the market was closed on Friday, so it held this 42 area. So if it can hold that, stay above 42, I like this over Thursday's high, up over 40, up in the high 42.30s. This one could be up from there, so keep this one on watch. And then a couple other. I always want to have, after KNDI's recent action, I want to have this one on watch. So it goes on the watch list. It held 14. It held below 14 for quite a bit, then challenged it, back down again, then up through it, and now it's kind of retesting the 14 area. I didn't draw those lines perfectly, but so I want to watch this one and see if it can hold 14. Could get another nice move. This thing has really big moves at times, and so it's worth having on an intraday chart. You can see some of the moves it has, and there's money to be made if you're one of the first into those moves. And so now, you're kind of flagging after the last push. And if we can hold this 14 area, I think we could get a couple nice trades this week. So KNDI goes on watch. Also in my notes, of less interest to me, but still worth looking at, ONVO is kind of coiling here as it pushed up to 9 and is putting in higher lows. If this gets a push through 9 on volume, keep an eye on that one. And a very thin one, but it's still, I can't type here, it's still interesting to me, UNXL, just because of the chart, no other reason. Don't know anything about the company, but it's hard to ignore this big volume spike here. And you had a really nice move off of that, and now you're really flagging, and inside of this flag is a much even tighter flag. And so up over this area, and I'll give you some numbers in just a second, this could make a pretty quick, decisive, and sizable move. And these are 60-minute candles, so really up over 855. This high was 860, so up through 855, I'm going to say, on some kind of volume on Monday. Wouldn't surprise me to see this push pretty quickly up through 9 and maybe significantly higher. Okay, so keep this UNXL on a chart. Now again, it's pretty thin. 163,000 on the half day. The day before that, 300 and something thousand. So it's a thinner stock. Keep that in mind when choosing position size. But I like that chart a lot. All right, I'm going to leave it at that because that's plenty enough to start Monday with. And our group in the chat room will certainly find a whole bunch of new stocks to trade this week when we watch, volume plays that we look for and that sort of thing. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see everybody on Monday.